In today's video, I'm going to show you how I finish turn the inside of a bowl. I'll show you which tools I use and which techniques. This bowl is completely turned and sanded from here to here. We're going to go ahead and flip it around. The inside has not been touched. See the description for a video on the details on how this bowl was mounted to turn the outside. In the same video, I discussed the details for making the tenons so the bowl will spin true when we mount it in this orientation. And here I'm just pressing on the bottom of the bowl so that it seats all the way to the back. So here I give the bowl a quick spin with the hand to make sure it's not going to rub on the tool rest since it's not completely trued up yet. My hand is on the left or on the headstock of the lathe as I turn the RPMs up. If I start to feel vibration, I stop. This first cut will be made with the Irish grind gouge. For starters, I just want to true up the rim of the bowl, and I'm going to start with a pole shear cut. The bevel of the gouge is touching the bowl at the point where it is being cut. Then I'm switching now to a peeling cut, so the handle is level here. And basically the wood is coming right down on the cutting edge. This is very efficient. Again, the bevel is touching the wood. You cannot hang over the rest very far with that cut. Now here, you do have the option of a straight scraping cut. That's not what I'm doing now, but that's what I briefly showed you there. That's just where basically the flute points toward the bowl and you push into the wood. And this last cut that I am performing now is a shear cut where the handle's dropped and you're pulling it toward yourself. And I'm just going to quickly make sure that I got it completely trued up. For starters, I'm just making sure that my bowl gouge is cutting at the center point. I'm using a 40-40 grind bowl gouge. This is the gouge I use to do most of the hollowing of the bowl. You'll see that my flute, so if the flute were straight up and down, that would be at the 12 o'clock position. Straight to the right would be the 3. It's around probably the 2:30 position. You can open it up a little more if you'd like, if you want it to be more aggressive. However, the more closed down it is, the cleaner the cut will be. Here's a quick look of the 40-40 grind gouge I'm using. The first thing that I'm doing here is I'm bringing the entire bowl to round. That way it is more balanced and the out of balance nature won't bring in vibration as I turn the RPMs up. I'm now switching to my bottom gouge. This gouge cuts better across the bottom of the bowl. And toward the end of the video, I'm going to show you all the gouges that I've used in this video so you get a better look at them. If you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. I'm going to turn the RPMs up now that the bowl is balanced. I'd say about 40 miles an hour is the ideal, but no faster than 45 miles an hour. This is a 10.5-inch bowl. That's 1,300 RPMs at about 40 miles an hour and about 1,440 RPMs at 45 miles an hour. So you just saw me have a spiral catch there, and that's basically caused by the rotation of the bowl. Nothing too concerning, but it can be unsettling. To avoid it, plant your thumb behind the gouge, have the gouge a little more closed down, and then open the flute of the gouge once you get into the cut. And what I mean by closed down, so the flute should be closer to the 3 o'clock position, and then open it up to your 2 to 2:30 as you get into the cut. You may hear a little bit of chatter as I turn. The one thing I did to combat this is I paused a minute, and sometimes you can get that to go away just by pausing and then advance your tool more slowly. The other thing you can do is make a lighter cut. And it's also important to not apply pressure to the bevel itself. You want to be on the bevel, but the pressure should be on the tip of the cutting tool. You may see that I did not cut all the way to the bottom of the bowl on that last cut, and that is the approach we're going to take. So we're going to bring it to the finished thickness up to that point where you see that first shoulder that I'm now cutting to. And then once I get the wall thickness where I want it, I will continue to the bottom. all the cuts that I'm making as I turn this bowl on the inside, the gouge is pretty much level. Do not concern yourself with that too much. However, you do want to start the cut as close to the center line as possible. I'm just using the calipers to see how I'm doing as far as having an even wall thickness. The calipers do not touch the bowl on the outside, you just get it close to the wood. So the bowl actually has a little bit of a taper, so the rim itself is a little bit wider than where I finished cutting. And this is something that actually feels nice in the hand. I'm going to go ahead and start shaping the rim itself. And I'm just using the Irish grind, also known as the Ellsworth grind, to make those cuts. As you exit your cut, you want to make sure you're not making a big cut, because sometimes you can tear the fibers out. So sometimes you'll see me here pausing the cut and then taking a lighter cut so as not to tear those fibers out on the exit. And for the most part, I'm just cutting with the handle level. We're on the bevel. You do hear some chatter. That's basically because I'm rubbing the bevel a little too hard, so I need a little bit lighter touch to avoid that chatter sound. Do a little shear scraping on that, handle drop, flute facing the bowl. And it's just a little, this is your high point, and this is radius, a very light radius, and then it kind of curves out here on the backside. I'm gonna put a light pencil mark there. That's around your high point there. I lock my arms into my body and use my body to make the curve. And this shear scraping is basically being used to get rid of all the tooling marks and blend everything in so we can start with a much finer sandpaper. Got some harmonics. I'm gonna try to change my RPM, see if that takes care of that. Some vibration can be caused by harmonics, and you can help to eliminate it a couple of ways. One being change the RPMs that your lathe is rotating at. Usually I choose to turn the RPMs down a little bit, and then also just taking a lighter cut can help as well. I'm trying to show most things in real time. However, I'm just kind of repeating the process here until I get rid of all the tool marks. So I just went ahead and sped this section up to get the show on the road a little bit. And I'm grabbing a 40/40 grind gouge to get rid of some of this shoulder before I switch to my bottom gouge. As a disclaimer, some of my 40/40 grind gouges, they're 40 degrees ground on the nose and on the wings, but some of the wings are swept back more than 40 degrees. And that is mostly accidental with time. Here I am switching to my bottom gouge. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second here. Cuts really nice across the bottom of the bowl. The flute orientation doesn't seem to matter all that much. However, some species of wood, it does matter. Most of the time I'm turning with the flute very close to 3 o'clock position, maybe opened up a little bit around the 2:30 position or so. I have found that it will cut in pretty much any position that you can use the tool with the bevel riding on the wood, even the flute mostly pointing down, and sometimes that can give you the cleanest cut. And again, it's by species, which ultimately is how hard the wood is. You may have seen me adjust my tool rest height a little bit, and that's so that the cut finishes at the center. So before I go too much farther, I want to determine the thickness of the bottom of the bowl. I measure the outside off the back of the jaws, deduct 13/16, which is the height of the jaws, and measure the inside and take the difference. The material that makes up the tenon will be removed. From here on, you will not see me grab the calipers again. I'm more concerned about not going too deep at the bottom and having a nice fluid curve. So you'll see me checking the curve with my finger and checking the overall depth frequently to make sure I don't go too deep. As you see, I'm continuing to use the bottom gouge. I want to reiterate that it is used mostly level. So the handle is neither dropped or raised, although if it is dropped or raised a little, it does not matter so long as you can finish at the center point. I would encourage you to toy around with different flute positions with this gouge. Stop the lathe after each test to see how clean your cut is. You'll get different results with different types of wood. Here I'm going to pause and check the thickness of the bowl again. It's about 5/8 of an inch thick. My goal is to have a finish thickness of about 3/8. I'm okay with a 1/4 inch, but that is taking into consideration about 1/8 of an inch cup on the foot. The finger swipe that you saw there is to pick up any changes in the curve. So if I run my finger from the foot to the rim, I can tell with my finger if I have a nice curve. That's the best test. A moment ago, I paused to sharpen this gouge. This video is not on sharpening, but I think it would be a mistake to not point out that it is important to work with sharp tools. For starters, you won't get good results with dull tools. You'll get torn grain and you'll get a lot of frustration. But it can also become dangerous to work with dull tools because there is a great temptation to force your tool through the cut. One thing I like to do is to sharpen a tool right before I make the final pass. Or I'll have a second tool of the same type set aside for that final pass. The reason I don't finish turn the rim to the bottom of the bowl all at once is because as the bowl gets thinner, you're going to start to get a lot more chatter. And that's because as the wood gets thinner, it allows for flex in the bowl as you try to turn it. So by turning it in stages, we eliminate some of that. It's interesting to note as well that this gouge that I call the bottom gouge isn't just capable of cutting the wood at the bottom. Can actually make cuts anywhere on the inside of this bowl cleanly. The only shortcoming that this gouge has is that it doesn't do a good job of making an entry cut. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the footage here. Basically, we're doing a lot of the same things, and you see me stopping and checking it a lot, and that's to make sure we get a nice fluid curve. I want to point out one last thing before we wrap up. And when you make that final cut with a gouge, take a light cut, a light grip, relax, and you have to trust your ability to make a nice fluid curve. Tension is your enemy, and don't be afraid to fail. On a good day, you can go right to sanding after making your last cut with that bowl gouge. But sometimes you need a negative rake scraper. A negative rake scraper for the inside of a bowl is basically a curved skew. It's important to note that the last thing that should be sharpened or ground on this negative rake scraper is the underside, because it gives you a burr that you need for turning with the negative rake scraper. A negative rake scraper is one of those tools that needs to be sharpened often to get good results. I only use this tool if I have areas that need to be blended or I have some tool marks left behind. Typically, I find that you can cut cleaner with a bowl gouge. A negative rake scraper is not a good option for soft woods like soft maple. There we are. I was able to clean that up with a negative rake scraper. Just a smidge of a nub right there. That's going to sand out super easy. But you can see there, you do see a slight transition, but very, very faint. This was cut so clean out here, I didn't want to touch it with a negative rake scraper. The key with a negative rake scraper is you have a nice fresh burr on there. So Sharpen it as many times as you need to get a nice clean cut. Just a touch of torn fiber there. That's on face grain, that'll sand out easy. Again, really important you not have any torn fiber right here. All this end grain here, pain in the neck to sand if it's torn. I used a handful of gouges. To get the results that I get, I find these to be essential. This is the 40/40 grind, hand ground on a platform. This is my bottom gouge. It's a V flute, and it's basically ground straight across, and it's about 50 degrees about across the nose. You can also use a U flute gouge to do the same thing a lot of people do. This had a different grind on it, or I was toying with something years ago, and I just haven't gotten it all off, so ignore the corners. A negative rake scraper. So this is what I was using to clean, if I had tool marks to clean up. It's a combined about 65 degrees. So this point here is about 65 degrees. And then the Irish grind or Ellsworth grind. I don't know what the wings are. I don't have a great way to measure those, but it's about 50 degrees on the nose. The flat here is just so I can continue using the jig. I use quick lock handles a lot. Try not to hit my tripod here. So this is a Carter & Sons scraper. It doesn't fit all the way in. Doesn't bother me. Some people maybe it would. Doug Thompson gouge with an adapter on there. This is a that's a Vicmac adapter, so that's a Vicmac handle. Quick release, just it's cam, so just twist, pull it out. This is made by Serious Toolworks. This adapter, so is the gouge actually, and then just fits in there. Again, same thing. So both of those work in this handle. So I really like using that. I did a video on that. I'll include it in the show notes. I didn't feel like I was as much on my A game in this video, and you know, that's the way it is sometimes. I haven't been on the lathe as much as I would like, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's all muscle memory. All the same, I hope you found the content useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to catch you on the next one.